Hi everybody, welcome to our podcast. We are Mika and Ro inviting you today to travel with us to the year 1216, when the world was completely different from nowadays, or maybe not. During the following episodes, we will be glad to introduce to you who Henry III was and how life used to be during the Middle Ages. Here we go! Enjoy the ride and be prepared to go 524 years back in history. Do you know who Henry III was? If you don't, let me tell you a little bit about him. In 1216, at just 9 years of age, young Henry became King Henry III of England. His reign saw turbulent and dramatic changes take place with the Baron-led rebellions and the confirmation of the Magna Carta. Henry was born in October 1207 in Winchester Castle, the son of King John and Isabella of Angoulême. Whilst little is known of his childhood, in October 1216 his father, King John, passed away, right in the midst of the First Barons' War. Young Henry was left to inherit his mantle and all the chaos that came with it. Henry had inherited not only the Kingdom of England, but also the wider network of the Angevin Empire, including Scotland and Wales. This domain had been secured by his grandfather Henry II, whom he was named after, and later consolidated by Richard the First and John. Young King Henry had inherited the First Barons' War, with all its chaos and conflict spilling over from his father's reign. As he was not yet of age, John had arranged for a council made up of 13 executors who would assist Henry. He was placed in the care of one of the most well-known knights in England, William Marshal, who knighted Henry whilst Cardinal Gallagher oversaw his coronation on 28 October 1216 at Gloucester Cathedral. His second coronation took place on 17 May 1220 at Westminster Abbey. Despite him being considerably older, William Marshal served as protector to the king and successfully defeated the rebels at the Battle of Lincoln. The battle began in May 1217 and served as a turning point in the First Barons' War, with Marshal's victorious army looting the city. Lincoln was known to have been loyal to Louis VIII's forces, and thus Henry's men were keen to make an example of the city, catching French soldiers as they fled south, as well as many of the treacherous barons who had turned against Henry. In September 1217, the Treaty of Lambeth enforced Louis' withdrawal and ended the First Barons' War. The treaty itself incorporated elements of the Great Charter which Henry had issued in 1216. A more diluted form of the charter issued by his father King John. The document, more commonly known as the Magna Carta, was designed to settle the differences between royalists and rebels. By 1225, Henry found himself issuing the charter against. Whilst feeling increasingly under threat, the barons decided to support Henry only if he issued the Magna Carta. The charter would become ever more ingrained in English governance and political life, a feature which continued in the reign of Henry's son Edward I. With the Crown's authority visibly limited by the Charter, some more pressing baronial issues such as patronage and the appointment of royal advisors were still left unresolved. Henry's formal rule only came into force in January 1227, When he came of age, he would continue to rely on advisors who had guided him in his youth. One such figure was Howard the Board, who became highly influential in his court. In his personal life, he married Eleanor of Provence and went on to have 5 children. His marriage would prove successful, and he was said to have remained faithful to his wife for their 36 years together. He also made sure she fulfilled a prominent role as queen, relying on her influence in political affairs and granting her patronage, ensuring her financial independence. He even made her regent to rule once he was abroad in 1253. Trust he had. By 1258, the barons were demanding reform and initiated a cap d'etat. This effectively ushered in a new government, abandoning the absolutism of the monarchy and replacing it with a 15-member Privy Council. Henry had no choice but to take part and support the provisions. Henry turned instead to Louis IX for support, agreeing to the Treaty of Paris, and a few years later, in January 1264, relying on the French king to arbitrate the reforms in his favor. By the means of Amiens, the provisions of Oxford were annulled, and the more radical elements of the rebel group of barons were ready for a second war. Led by Simon de Montfort, in 1264 fighting had resumed once more and the Second Barons' War was underway. One of the most decisive victories for the barons occurred at this time, with Simon de Montfort, the chief in command, becoming de facto king of England. At the Battle of Lewes in May 1264, Henry and his forces found themselves in a vulnerable position, with the royalists overwhelmed and defeated. Henry himself was taken prisoner and forced to sign the Peace of Lewes, effectively transferring his power to Montfort. Fortunately for Henry, his son and successor Edward managed to escape and defeated de Montfort and his forces in a battle at Evesham a year later. In 1272, Henry III passed away, leaving a torrid political and social landscape for his successor and first-born son, Edward.